Welcome to the show, Columbus. I'm Alicia, and we have a wonderful show for you today. My guest today is Tom Roughton from Union Springs, Alabama. Thanks for being with us, Tom.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're certainly welcome. I'm thrilled. Tom is a Baptist minister, and he plays guitar, dobro, and pedal steel guitar. And on May 21st, 2017, Tom was inducted into the Alabama Steel Guitar Association Hall of Fame. The late Bill Cook, a wonderful person who recently passed away, was then president of the association, and this is what Bill said during the induction ceremony. He said, Tom Roughton started playing the steel in 1955 when he was only 14 years old. At 17, he joined the United States Army, and he served with duty stations in the United States and Germany. He played all the service clubs to include touring for a month in Europe and with the Grand Ole Opry Stars headlined by Stonewall Jackson. After his discharge, he was a much sought-after steel guitarist. He had played with country music stars such as Mel Street, George Morgan, Sammy Smith, Jeannie Pruitt, Jack Green, Jeannie Seeley, Barbara Fairchild, Hank Williams Jr., and many more. At one point, he played with Bob Johnson and the Bobcats locally. Bob's son, Mike Johnson, who was only 15 at the time, played drums with the band. And Tom would show Mike a few things on the steel during their breaks. Today, Mike is recognized as the country music industry's #1 top steel player. And Mike was also president of that induction ceremony and took part in it. And he said that when he would play drums in his dad's band, he would watch everything Tom was doing. He would set his drums up in a place where he could see every move Tom would make. And he said to himself, you know what? He makes that steel sound pretty cool. That's a cool instrument. I want to do that. He said that Tom was such a great inspiration to him, and he added, the best part of it is that Tom gave his life to the Lord, and that's more special than anything else. And that, to me, is an awesome statement. And I admire Mike for his talent and his whole idea about everything. But before I start bombarding Tom with a lot of questions, we have a clip for you of Tom playing the pedal steel guitar, a song called The Keys in the Mailbox. Sit back and enjoy. The steel is one of my favorite instruments.
Thank you.
What started you in music? How did you get started?
Well, actually, Alicia, when I was about 5 years old, maybe 6, somebody gave me a little lap steel guitar, little 6-string steel guitar, and I played around with it, but I really didn't get into it. And so later on, our school decided they were going to start a school band, and it was a little country school down in Inverness, Alabama. And so they gave a musical aptitude test. And I was in the 5th grade at that time, and I was the only one in the whole school that failed the test.
You're kidding.
And it just made me so aggravated. I said, I will learn to play. So I got the little lap steel guitar out and tried to go with it, But back then, there's nobody that taught steel guitar,
Right.
and so when I got maybe another year or two, one night my dad came home and he'd been drinking moonshine, and that stuff run you crazy, but. He came in and when he was drinking, he was really a mean person.
Mm-hmm.
And he did something, and I laughed at him. And so he reached over and grabbed the rifle. And when he did, I started running. And we had a fence in our backyard and a gate. I leaped over the gate, and I think he called himself shooting over my head. But the bullet, I remember, it came so close, I could hear the zing.
Wow.
of the bullet when it came up over my head or close to my head. But I ran through the night, pitch dark. I went through the woods, through a branch, and there was a black family that lived about a half mile on the other side of where we lived, and so they let me in, and they told me I would be safe in their house, and they kept me overnight.
Were they
And
musical people?
no, no, they were not really, but because they knew I was in danger, and so the next day, I went home because my dad had gone on to work. I took his rifle and I wrapped it in an army blanket. And I told my mom, I said, he'll never shoot at me again. And I placed the rifle wrapped in the blanket up under the house. I crawled up. We had an old house and the pillars off the ground. So I hid the rifle. And a few weeks later, I found a gentleman that had a steel guitar. And it was a double neck Gibson, I believe it was. And I told him I would love to buy that, but I said I don't have any money, and I'm only like 13 years old. And I said, but I got a rifle.
Oh, my word.
So he said, well, let me look at it. And I got it and took it up there to where he was and showed it to him. And he said, do you mind if I call your mom? I said, no, that'd be fine. Well, he called her. He said, your son has a rifle he wants to trade for a steel guitar. And she said, yes, by all means. And so that's the way I really got started. I had the type instrument then that I could play, that I could learn to play. And, it was maybe a few weeks.
You had to learn it just the hard way. You had nobody give you any shortcuts, any hints at all.
That's right. And I went on, and when I was 14, I was playing music in clubs, making money. The only one in the whole school that was making money playing music. The only one in the whole school that failed.
The rest were cutting grass, huh? Well, and what made you choose that lap steel, or was that just what was available?
Well, that was the only thing that I could get. Back then, it was the price of it. My parents, got it for me because it was inexpensive. And
well, and being a musician, I know that there are several different types of steel guitars, ranging from lap steels onto other things. Tell our viewers who don't know about steel guitars how they're made or what they're like, how complicated they can be. Tell us about the steel guitar.
Actually, the lap steel guitar is the easiest to play. It generally has 6 strings, and it originated in Portugal. And from Portugal, it came into Hawaii, and a lot of people call it Hawaiian steel guitar. And then later on, the double neck began to come in. Country music got involved with the steel guitar and with the dobro. But the steel guitar, the difference in pedal steel guitar and what we call a straight steel or lap steel, is that the pedal steel guitar has several pedals. These pedals raise and mostly raise the strings, but you have a combination of lowering and raising when you use your knee levers. You have a combination of knee levers and floor pedals, And some steel guitars have what they call a push pedal, where you push up with your knee. So it's a lot of. If you think about what you're doing, you mess up. It's very complicated.
It has to be just an instinctive thing.
Yeah.
I guess like not the same concept at all, but when people play the big church organs and they've got foot pedals and they've got all these pulls and there's just so much to do at one time. If it's not instinctive, you're just not going to be able to process it all.
That's right. That's right.
That's just impressive to me. You know, I've noticed over the years, and I'm 69, so there's quite a few years, that the steel guitar is a dying art, I think. You don't see many people playing them unless you're watching the Grand Ole Opry or you see some of the stars, and they have steel guitar players. But in your general country band, there used to be steel guitars and fiddles, and you don't see steel guitars anymore.
Right.
And I guess a part of the reason is because they are so complicated, and people pick guitars. They pick
Yeah.
the easy way out.
Oh yeah.
But you and Bill Cook have been trying to rekindle an interest in the steel guitar. Of course, Bill just passed away. But you told me earlier that you're not able to do much with that anymore, but do you have plans to continue your workshops?
We do. We plan to continue. Bill had collected musical instruments for years. He had several steel guitars and several guitars and cigar guitars and violins, fiddles, everything you can think about. And so he had them stored in different places, and he decided he wanted to get one central location to store all of his equipment. And so he opened up a studio back in October of last year in Union Springs, and we had begun to put a display of his musical instruments on the wall. We actually had 59 guitars
Oh, my
hanging up.
goodness.
And we had several steel guitars set up and built a stage, and the stage was built to look like an old front porch of an old house. And Bill wanted a TV show, so we started the Country Music USA. And of course, the USA is for Union Springs, Alabama. The only city in the United States can legally use that term.
Oh, cool.
But anyway, we had produced maybe from June until 2 weeks ago, when he passed away. We had produced a country music show every week, and
I've watched those. They're awesome.
yeah, it was really, we really put a lot of emphasis on the pedal steel guitar, and it is a dying art, I think. But mostly the dying art is because of the style. The country music steel guitar is actually going out, but you still got the Hawaiian steel guitar.
Well, now Bella Fleck, who is pretty much, I guess, a pop rock type artist, and even the Eagles use steel guitar on some of their music too.
And the African American churches, a lot of them are using steel guitars.
Really? I did not know that.
Robert Randolph is probably one of the best black steel guitarists that I've seen some of his production on YouTube. But they call it sacred steel.
Oh,
But it's actually pedal steel guitars.
that's amazing.
And so they're doing they're bringing a big comeback in the churches there, and not only just in churches but other places too. But I think it's going to spring back. I don't think it'll come back that much in the country music part, in the traditional country.
Well, what in my opinion, the music we have today that's called country music is really not what I think of as country music. But then times change, people
Right.
change.
That's right.
But I hope it does have a resurgence because it's a beautiful instrument. And just, I know the viewers in listening to that opening tune that you were playing, you can hear the sliding of the notes and that little mournful sound. And all that's done with the feet and the knees as well as the hands and the slide on the strings. And it's just amazing to me how anybody could do that. I'd do good to use two hands on a piano keyboard, you know. You were talking about the show you produced, and that's going to lead me right into the next thing. You have a media production company called N, just the letter N, N Focus Television Productions. So tell us a little bit about what you do with that.
I produce different programs. I actually produce 3 programs a week right now. I've produced a lot more than that. But I do one, my wife and I do the Southern Gospel USA, and it's on all the cable stations in Columbus, Channel 68, Channel 9, Charter 19, Windjammer, Com Cable, Channel 11, and WOW, Channel 12. And it's also produced in 28 cities in Alabama, in central Alabama.
Wonderful.
We run that every week. In fact, it's on 4 times a week in this area.
And it's on Montgomery cable channels as well,
It's on
correct?
Montgomery cable channels also.
And Troy? Did you tell me Troy?
We're on Dish and Direct TV in Troy.
Okay.
Now,
Now, you also put your shows on YouTube, so for people who don't have access to them from the cable, because we have viewers who are all over the United States, and I think some even in countries overseas, I believe Tim told me, who could go on YouTube. And how would they find you on YouTube?
Yeah, just look up Thomas Roughton.
And that's spelled Roughton, Thomas Roughton. And he'll have lots and lots of things that he's done as far as TV shows and festivals and those sort of things.
Right.
He's got an interesting channel.
I think I figured up the other day I've produced over 5,000
Wow.
TV shows.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, now I have another little thing that I was going to add here at the end, but we've kind of not used up as much time as I thought we would. So, is there anything other than this part, and you know what I'm talking about, anything that you would like to talk about concerning country music or gospel music or steel guitar that we haven't touched on?
One of the things with country music, a lot of times people will ask me, how can you be a preacher and condone some of the country music that you're playing and all this? In fact, one song in particular, I played on Bill Cook's country music show, and it was the Honky Tonk Blues. Do you remember that?
I do.
If you will look at that, it's kind of, you have to
Now,
look close.
you know
'Cause
what?
that's
You know I can't
small.
see because I'm old.
But I had someone to criticize me for running that on that. But if you'll look at the words to that,
Going stepping out and get the honky tonk blues and
yeah,
stepped into every place in town.
he left his home down on the rural route. Mm-hmm. In other words, I look at a farm. He left his farm. Mm-hmm. Okay, and at the end, notice the words close to the end.
And Lord, I got them.
Well, it
Even
goes up
before that?
here. He says, "I'm going to tuck my worries underneath my arm and go back down to my pappy's farm and lose these honky tonk blues."
There you go.
So we see a story here, and
This is Hank Williams, right?
yeah,
I thought
and
so.
country music has a story,
Yes, it
and that
does.
one in
Or used
particular,
to.
it has a story. Now, what does that remind me of?
Life.
In the scripture, it tells about the prodigal son.
Oh, you're so right.
And so he left home. He wanted his inheritance, and he went out and spent it on riotous living. And he lived it up. Maybe had the honky tonk blues.
There you go.
But he came to himself when he was in the hog pen. And he thought about even the hired servants have more to eat than I do. And he went back to his pappy's farm.
There you go. Raise up
So
a
we
child.
see the prodigal son story in the Bible, and we see this, that I'm not sure if Hank Williams wrote it, but he
I think he
did
did.
sing it. And so country music tells a story. But the person that's telling that, a lot of them are going through these honky tonk blues. A lot of these people are going through heartaches and trials and problems. And we think about this is Easter. We know we've read the scripture many, many times, how they came to the tomb and the stone had been rolled away. So I think we all have some stones that we need to roll away.
Oh, absolutely.
And these country music singers, when they write these songs, they're trying to roll some of those stones away. Hank Williams also came out with a song called "Be Careful of Stones."
Yes,
That
he
You
did.
Throw." there's so many.
And you
there's
can't
so
judge
much-
people, you know, and that was basically the message in that be careful of stones that you throw. You can't judge people by their actions so much because we don't know what lies underneath and what's
That's right.
making them to do the things they do or feel the way that they feel. You said that people ask you how you could be a preacher and play that sort of music, and I remember up until 2007 when I did the 18-year stint with Holiday Inn, I had somebody asking me a very similar question, and I said, well, you know, I could play gospel music, and I have played gospel music. But if I'm playing here, people like you are going to ask me, how can you play music in a place like this that serves alcohol? And then I get a chance to tell you what I'm really about, which is I'm a Christian. I believe those things that are in the book. That doesn't mean I'm perfect. It doesn't mean I walk the walk perfectly every day. Certainly I don't. But it's not the fact that you go there to give a testimony, but you are in a place where you can give a testimony. And if you conduct yourself in a respectful manner, then you're qualified to give that testimony. And that's what I always tried to do.
Right.
Was that right or wrong? I don't know. I don't know. But, you know, if we were all perfect, which we're not,
That's right.
there would have been no reason for the Lord to send Jesus Christ to this earth to live and walk as a man and to die as a man
That's right.
and then to be resurrected and show us that we have that same opportunity.
That's right.
That's not a free ticket to commit sin or to do things that are wrong, but it is a promise of hope when we do fall short.
That's true.
And that brings us to what we were going to talk about that I was talking about. You know, I've seen you tell this story. You told it at the induction of the, when you were inducted into the Steel Guitar Hall of Fame, about how you became a minister, how you got saved. And I want you to touch just a little bit on the Easter portion of this show.
Okay. Well, it goes back when I was a young man playing country music. Had no reflection to the church, but the church didn't offer anything for somebody coming along trying to learn to play a steel guitar. And a lot of them still don't.
Right.
Unfortunately, the scripture says we need to think about leaving the 99 and go after that one. Well, how are we going to go after that one? And I do a lot of gospel concerts, but we pray at these gospel concerts that somebody will get saved. Wait a minute. We're playing in a church. Most of the people are already saved. What about
That's right.
those that are not?
Exactly.
And so I went on it. I did own a nightclub before I got saved. Was shot. A man came in and shot me.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, I have a bullet in me now.
Wow.
I've been shot. I've been blown up in an explosion. I've had a lot of things that's happened in my life. I look back and I see where God had His hand on me. And but it's a long story. I won't get into it. But the man that shot me, the day that it went to trial, I asked the DA, would he consider dropping the charges against him? I was not saved. I didn't know why I was doing that, but it was God dealing with my heart. And so the man hugged my neck, and today we're good friends.
Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
really?
Oh, yeah.
Now, didn't you say that when you found the Lord, though, there was an incident that happened in I don't know if it was your club or a club where you saw someone killed?
Oh, yeah. It was a top 5 NCO club in Fort Benning. I was playing one night, and a man walked in, and he pulled a pistol out, and he shot this lady maybe 10 feet in front of me, and shot her right between the eyes, and she was dead before she hit the floor. Blood went everywhere. And I actually got sick, and I ran out. And I looked up, I said, God, if you're real, get me out of this. And so the next day, I went to Kirkland Memorial Baptist Church in Columbus. And I gave my heart to Jesus. And I went to work with a gospel group that same day.
Is that right?
Yeah, the Sunny South Quartet.
I know of them.
Yeah, I traveled with them for about a year. And so then God began to deal with me to preach the word. And I started preaching, and so I'm still preaching wherever
That's
God
awesome.
calls me. And
You know, that shows me, and I hope that the audience is picking this up like I am. I'm 69, and you're
76.
76. And I wasn't always the person I am today.
Right.
180 out. I didn't really do anything horrible by man's eyes, I don't suppose, but I did some pretty ruthless things, I think. I didn't walk the straight and narrow by any means, but I'd like to think that I'm certainly a far cry from what I was then. And that tells people that if you're a Christian, you don't have to be perfect, but you are forgiven, and you can move forward in your life. And Easter is just absolute reminder that you don't have to be what you were, and there is hope regardless of what you've done, where you've been, any thoughts that have run through your mind, any mistakes you've made. You don't have to be perfect because it's already taken care of.
Amen. Amen.
Is that right?
Amen.
Well, Tom, I tell you what, I wish we had all day to do this, and I know we don't. But before we play your last little song, I want you to give everybody your Easter message, if you would.
Actually, what I would like to mention is the Easter egg.
Okay?
I think the Easter egg is one of the greatest things that we can use. It's criticized by so many church people. Oh, we don't need the Easter egg hunt. But what better way to show your love for someone that you would never have an opportunity to let Christ shine through you than an Easter egg hunt? And so why not have an Easter egg hunt at church? So many of them would be there that would not normally be in church. So that goes back to leave the 99 and go after that one.
You know, that I read that the Easter egg was originally like the Halloween thing, a satanic kind of thing, but we don't have to keep it in that.
No, we don't have to keep that perspective of
No.
it. There's so many things.
It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful
Yeah.
colored egg, and children are they get such joy from hiding and collecting those eggs.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as we don't tell them it's a satanic thing, and we tell them the story of Christ and how it's a new beginning,
Exactly.
the egg symbolizes new life, we can turn it into something good instead of something evil.
Use it to usher in the message
There you go.
of the death, the burial, and the resurrection.
That's
Tell
absolutely
the real reason
Mm-hmm.
of Easter, but let them enjoy having the Easter egg hunt.
Mm-hmm.
And I did. It didn't hurt me.
It didn't hurt me either. It didn't hurt me either. Well, Tom, I'm so glad you were here today. I hate to even end the show. I wish I could think of something else to ask you.
Yeah, you know, I'm actually sitting here listening to Tom and his stories and thinking back. I grew up with a brother that was a musician, and he was pretty much demonized at the time because, you know, he's rock and roll musician,
Mm-hmm.
and I just think how music in itself has been demonized by
In
a lot of people.
ways, yes.
But, you know, the only thing I have to say, guys, pick up your Bible and go to, I can't word. I'm thinking about David, who was a man after God's own heart.
Mm-hmm.
And God used David because in his life, King Saul was having demonic attacks, I believe it was. David played the harp, and that was the only thing that would
If he had a
calm
pedal
him down.
steel, he might have played that.
He might have played a pedal steel. You're right about that. But you know, music and religion just it goes hand in hand, and it just absolutely amazes me how people can just demonize it.
Well, you know, singing is discussed in the Bible and making a joyful noise. And to me, good music is very joyful. Now, a lot of churches don't believe in musical instruments, and I'm not really sure I understand all that, so I won't comment on it. But I think God sees the smiles on our face, and He loves a good song. And they talk about the choirs and the angels singing. I mean, gee whiz. Music is a wonderful thing. And you can take music and you can go through someone's ears and get into their heart. I remember we had a gospel group many years ago. I don't know if you know Sandra Colley or not. Good old country girl, bless her heart. And we were working, and I was going, golly, we've got to get some of these harmonies straightened out. This sounds terrible. And she said, well, it don't really matter how it sounds as long as you're singing to the Lord. And I said, Sandra, if we're going to get these people to listen to the words of these songs, we got to get through their ears first.
Make a joyful noise.
Make a joyful noise. We weren't too joyful at that time. But gee whiz, I just love music, and I think it can be used in a good way or a bad way. And certainly there are some negative aspects of music this day and time, and probably always have been. But I like to think more of the positive aspects and make a really good sound and entertain a lot of people. And having that opportunity to witness and let them see the joy that comes from everything you can do in your life and how you handle the bad things. And when I'm in that music room and we're practicing, the rest of the world has just kind of gone away. You know. Well, folks, we have thoroughly enjoyed it. I know I have. I just want to remind you that next weekend we will not be having the show. We're going to let all of you spend the weekend with your families and celebrating Easter, having Easter egg hunts, as Tom said. But the following week, a week from 2 weeks from today, 2 weeks from today, we'll have Rachel, R.S.
Rachel.
R.S.
A lot of them know RS, but she's Rachel's her name.
Williams, correct? And she is a
Correct.
writer. What was this you sent me? It was a cute little thing, and it had a story title. And what was that, Tim?
Oh, no, you're talking about the little thing I threw in Photoshop. It
Yeah.
was like the old, whenever the book was due from the library.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah.
know a lot of millennials don't know what a library is, but, we actually used
We
to
had
read
one.
books and had to take them back at a certain time.
That's right. And be quiet.
But she writes her blog called the Happy Kitten Cottage.
That's what I was trying to get to. I didn't know
And,
what that was.
Yeah, that's her blog. And guys, go on the internet, look up R.S. Williams, look up Happy Kitten Cottage, and sign up, and she'll email it to you every month.
Oh, wonderful. I'll have to do that. See, I'm just learning about her, and I'll do my research in the next 2 weeks for the show that she's going to
I've
be
got
on.
a couple back issues I'll send to you.
Oh, wonderful. But do watch in 2 weeks. Take Easter off and ponder what Easter is all about and how it came to be, and make it a part of your world if you would. We ask you to do that. And in the meantime, we hope you all have a wonderful next 2 weeks. We're praying for some warmer weather. I am. We'll see you then with R.S. Williams. And at this point in time, we're going to wish you all a happy Easter. And we're going to close out with you playing the steel guitar rag, the most famous steel guitar song I think there ever has been. Happy Easter, everyone.
Happy Easter, guys.